All right, welcome to the reality show Life Coach podcast. Today we'll be talking about season 20, episode 1 of The Bachelorette. And with me today, I have a very special guest, Lauren Rapaport. So, Lauren, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren. I'm a life coach and a lover of reality TV. So, this is like my dream that I get to talk about my two favorite things. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I'm a huge Bachelor fan. I've watched almost every season. I took a break over the last three seasons. I just kind of got fed up with the show, but I am back. So, I'm so excited to have an excuse to get back into the franchise. I've had type 1 diabetes for 43 years, so I mainly help people who are struggling to cope emotionally with living with type 1 diabetes. I help them change how they think about their disease so they can free up space in their brains to focus on their life so they can do whatever they want in their life, like, I don't know, go on a reality TV show. Um, I also help people who don't have type 1 who just feel stuck in their life. So I help them get unstuck and also live the life they want to do. So the tools are very applicable to all things in life, like dating and helping deal with mind drama. So it's very apropos for being here in a podcast talking about mind drama. So
I
excited to
know.
be here.
Well, Lauren, okay, I didn't tell you I was going to do this next part, but I'm going to do this next part. I just wanted to say thank you to you because we met in a very special way. Earlier this year, I had just left my coaching job where I was working for another coach for 4 or 5 years, and I had taken a break from that job and I was just starting my own business. And I was freaking out. And this one day, I happened to be in a Facebook group for coaches, and I saw Lauren's ad, or not ad, but like post about looking for people to exchange coaching with. And I just on a whim signed up, and we had such a good exchange, and she like just helped me so much in coaching. And I don't know, it was just really cool, Lauren, because at the end of it, you're like, oh my God, that was so great. Let's talk again. And I was like feeling so shy, but I felt the same way. And we have been meeting every single week since then. And you have been such like a good like supporter, cheerleader, coach. Like there's so many weeks that you just called me out on all of my terrible thoughts about starting a business and how scared I was. And when I was putting together this podcast and I was like thinking about like, okay, who do I want to start with? I just immediately thought of you because I think of you as like one of my safe people and I feel so comfortable with you. And yeah, and so
Oh,
that's why you get to be my first guest because you are
oh
my safe person. So thank you for being that for me.
I'm like, if I'm like grinning ear to ear, and like I remember you told me about this podcast, and I was like, you have a podcast about life coaching and reality TV? Tell me everything. So I'm
Yeah.
so honored to be here, and thank you for telling that story because it's been
Mhm.
so fun meeting with you week to week. It's like the highlight of my week. So
Same,
thank you for having
same.
me. Oh my gosh,
Okay,
so
warm
fun.
fuzzies. Okay, well, back to business, Lauren.
Okay,
Go
okay,
on, get
okay.
back. All right, so we're gonna do a show recap. This first episode it was all right. It's just like the limo entrances. It's kind
Yeah.
of ho-hum. So we started out, we learned a little bit more about our lead, Charity Lawson. She is 27 years old. She has her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Auburn University, which I love. I'm hoping to see some of her skills there coming up in this. I don't know if we've ever had anybody with like a mental health background as our lead before, so that's pretty rad.
I
Um,
haven't seen it.
I haven't either. And her parents, they show her parents, they have been married for 48 years. I don't know about you, but I was just like, how is this even possible? They look like they're like early 50s. So they would have had to get married when they were like four.
They're so cute though. It is such a cute
They're
little
so cute.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, I Googled it. They were 16 and they are apparently 64. It's amazing. I want whatever they have.
Yeah.
So Charity is from Zach Shawcross's season, the last season of The Bachelor. And before Zach, she had been in a 6-year relationship where she was cheated on. So she is looking for somebody who can be her forever person and that she can really count on and who will be head over heels for her. So I love her already. She is, yeah,
So I didn't watch last season, as I admitted. What was she like on last season?
I didn't see much of her. I mean, I think that
Okay.
they were really prepping her to be the lead for this one because they didn't really
Mhm.
show her. She didn't get into any drama. Heart of Gold, like very just personable and nice. So
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to getting to know her on this season because last season it was just like, oh, she seems like just a nice, wonderful person. And I don't know, she just seems very, like, self-aware, very
Yeah.
grounded, and I think we saw a lot of that on this episode too.
I found her kind of quirky, like especially on
Yeah,
the second rewatch. I was like cracking up. Like she's nice, but I think she's kind of quirky. She was
yeah,
kind of making me laugh. I like her so far.
yeah, I like her too,
Yeah.
so much.
Anyway.
Um, so okay, so we have the limos arriving, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh. I don't know, I'm used to people doing, like, these over the top weird things in the
Yeah.
intro packages, and we didn't see much of that.
Thank God.
Uh, I
I'm
know.
not a big fan of the
You're
over the
not?
top, honestly. I know it creates drama. I know you're
I
supposed to like
know.
that. I like the more like meaningful, thoughtful, endearing openings. I know
Okay. I
you're kind
know.
of agreeing
I
with
was
me.
like, I don't know. Well, there was one that I liked the most, and there was the other ones where I could have shrugged.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna run through these fast. We have
Okay.
Aaron B. He does his coin toss, where he's asking her if she believes in fate. Heads, they get engaged. Tails, he leaves. I'm pretty sure that was a double-sided coin,
Oh,
or like one of those like
100%.
fake coins. Yeah, yeah.
He got his way every single time with that one,
Every time, every
including
time.
a kiss, which I thought was a little cringy. But anyway, sorry.
Most of that's crunchy. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see. We have Joey who lives in Hawaii. He brought the plumeria where left is you're taken, right is you're not taken, and he's hoping by the end she'll pick him and she'll move the flower to the left. Kind of cute. The
Mhm.
flower looked amazing on her, so it kind
So
of she
gorgeous.
sold it.
Yes.
We have Warwick. I actually kind of like this one. He said his parents met on a flight and he gave her a one-way ticket to, I'm assuming his hometown of Oxford, Ohio.
I
I like
didn't I didn't catch the Ohio part, but I thought that was cute.
I know. I was like, it could have been anywhere. He took his own town. I guess that's all right. I mean, I like small towns, so maybe I'd be into it, but Charity was a good sport. Let's see. I won't go through all of these. We have Caleb, our doctor, who had a stethoscope. He put it like he had her listen and put it up to his heart. His heart is beating just for her.
Yeah, her little
Um,
comments I thought were really funny. She had some like funny like one-liners after some of
do
these.
you remember any that you liked?
I not off the top of my head. Not off the top of my head. Like the stethoscope, like the heartbeat one. She made a
Yeah.
couple little zingers. I just thought she was funny.
The next one, Caleb, he said, my name means eternal and your name means love. We can put those together. I actually thought this one was kind of like, yeah, okay, Caleb, like this probably works for anyone's name, but okay, so Lauren, I have to admit, I looked up our names to see what they mean. Do you know what your name means?
I don't.
So Lauren means wisdom, which I was like, okay, this could go someplace.
I didn't know
Um,
that.
my name, Lynn, means like lake or like body of water. So I was like, well, if you put those together, you get wet wisdom, which I think is just gross. Like, all right. Maybe he's on to something. It really doesn't work for every combo of names.
So funny. My favorite was the John. First of all, I loved John and the
Hmm.
fortune cookie. I thought that was so cute.
I know. That was my favorite one too. I was like, any person who brings me a cookie is already in my good graces. But to have like such a cute message where he was like, what did the cookie say? It said something along the lines of like, you're gonna meet the man of your dreams and his name is John.
Effort to like put the fortune in the cookie. I just thought that was so cute.
So cute.
Yeah.
Who else did we have? Any other ones of note? I mean, Brayden, he's a travel nurse and he brought in some shots. Are you wanted to make sure you're up to date on your shots? Charity seemed charmed by this one.
But the
So,
shots?
hmm
Yeah.
yeah,
I didn't put together the travel nurse. I just was like, oh, so you bring her alcohol? Like I just thought that was interesting.
I
I
did
did.
too. We have Spencer. Oh, Spencer. The internet has not been kind to him. He, kind of stuttered through his thing on martial arts.
Yeah.
I know for myself I would be incredibly nervous, like with all the cameras and being out of out of my element. So, I watched this and I just kind of felt for him because he was really having a hard time getting his words out and expressing himself. And I
Yeah.
just, yeah. And I mean, this is where I thought Charity really shined because she was just like really like helping draw him along and really cueing him on how he could do his intro. Like she kept asking him questions and stuff.
You know what I really liked? I don't know if this is new because again, I haven't seen the last three seasons. I liked how they did the packages during the limo because I find
Hmm.
that part painful. It's so awkward and so painful
Yes.
that I
Yes.
was like, oh, they're giving the audience a reprieve. So
Yes.
again, that's new. At least that's new to me. They did not do that. Like, see, Peter Weber's season was the last season I saw. That's a
No,
new format. So they gave us a reprieve of the awkwardness. So I
they
liked that.
totally did. That is a new thing. They used to do just the intro packages and then they would show videos of people or like throughout, but I liked how they mixed it up there.
Yeah.
Too much to say on these intros. I mean, again, nobody did anything off the wall. You get your, of course, people making comments behind the scenes as they watch people come in.
Yeah.
I think the most notable one was like, oh my gosh, everyone's tall. Which I thought was hilarious because I really like height doesn't really matter to me.
Me
I don't
neither.
know. Yeah. And I
I'm
was,
5'1", so everyone's tall to me.
oh, fair enough. Fair enough. But to me, I
And
was like, shrug.
well, I looked it up. Charity's 5'7". So if
Oh,
people are tall to her, they are really tall.
really tall.
Really
Holy
tall.
cow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. But the
Just
men seem to think
perspective.
it matters because they made a lot of comments on it. Um, yeah. So we have our last guy. I think Doughton was the last guy to come in. He's the last limo, or so she thinks. But then Jesse Palmer comes out and says, Charity, we have one last person for you to meet, someone from your past. She was visibly nervous at this point.
Yeah.
So nervous. I was surprised, but I was like, okay, she's thinking it's one of two people. She's thinking it's probably Zach, the previous bachelor, or her ex boyfriend of 6 years who had cheated on her, which that would have been incredibly cruel to bring on. But instead, it's her brother Nehemiah, and she's so happy. Like their relationship is wonderful.
It's so cute. Yeah.
So cute. So she thinks he's just there for a pep talk, but what he's really there for is to morph into undercover brother, which I thought I was really going to hate this part, but his costume was so ridiculous.
I'm saying it could have done with a better costume, but it was like maybe it was so ridiculous that it was supposed to be funny.
Yes. It was I think that they wanted it to be so obvious and it like just wasn't. Like
Yeah.
to the cast, they just like didn't even really seem to notice except for like one guy, but I liked how kind of a little bit uncomfortable he was with it. Like I think he thought
Hmm.
it was a good idea ahead of time and then he was doing it and he was just like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah, totally.
I was charmed. All right. So Charity comes in the house. She gives her obligatory speech to all the men, and then we have our one-on-one interactions. First person she kisses is Xavier. Next one is John, John of fortune cookie fame. I love his energy. I'm like, to me, John would be a front runner, but who knows how far
I
he'll
he
make
was
it.
I'm with you. I think he got the first. Well, I'm skipping ahead, sorry. But he's my favorite.
Yeah, he's my favorite too.
Aw, I
Um,
love that we're already in agreement.
oh, we're in agreement. So sweet. So she has these interactions. And then, of course, Jesse Palmer comes and drops off the first impression rose. And of course, there's so much anxiety. I'm sure it didn't happen like this on the show, but what was hilarious is that, of course, they're all talking about how nervous they are. And Chris, like the resident, like jumping, I don't know, world record holder for jumping, immediately starts flipping. One of three Calebs, starts also flipping and then wrestling him as if they're trying to woo her with physical activity. And then we cut over to Aaron S., who is spraying ducks with her with fire extinguishers. Let's see, we have Aaron B with his piano playing and poem, I think. And then, dot, 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 we move along and we get to her one on one with Brayden, which is very clear that Charity likes him. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. They kiss, and then I swear his energy was very much just like a little puppy let out of a kennel, like so excited, just like running around the house saying, "We kissed, we kissed, we kissed." Brother Nehemiah, doesn't like this. He thinks it's cocky, but I don't know. I thought it was I don't know. We'll talk about this in a little bit. Okay, and then a little bit later, Nehemiah reveals himself as the undercover brother, and everybody is freaking out in the house. They're not sure what they said in front of him. And Brayden, in particular, is very worried that he might have said something in front of him about Charity. Um, I think they wanted this to be more than it was. I'm pretty sure they wanted somebody to discover that Nehemiah was there, but I don't know. It's a little worrisome to me that nobody copped to it, that they're like, oh, maybe this guy is undercover. Maybe this guy is like a setup from the show, but nobody really seemed to know. Were you surprised by that?
I wasn't, because how would they really know him? Like, they probably saw like a few scenes from her hometown, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how would they really know? But one thing I think it's funny is that she pre- she pretended to not know that he was undercover. And I did listen to Nick Vile, who
Yes,
was on the
yes.
previous season. He has a podcast, and he was like, it they say it's the mansion, but it's a house. He's like, it's like a small house. He's like, there's no way Charity didn't know. Like, you wander around the house. It's really small. Like, of course she saw her brother bartending. Like, she definitely knew. This was so funny.
I was listening to another podcast. It's called Love to See It. It's like a very feminist take on the show. I love it.
Yeah.
And they had a previous contestant on, and she was like, it's possible they just didn't let Charity over to the bar area. Like, it's
Oh,
possible. But I was like, I agree with you though. Like, if I looked
that's
across
true.
and my brother was there in a ridiculous wig, fake mustache, and a hat, I'd be like, that is my brother Barney. He is right over there. Like,
Right.
ridiculous.
Or she knew something suspicious was going on because she knew her brother was there, and then they didn't let her to the bar area. Like, she had to have known
She
something
would
was going on.
totally. I'm
Yeah.
sure just maybe the producers just brought her everything she needed. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, so
But
then
anyway.
Nehemiah and Charity talk, and he tells her his concerns about Brayden, which she goes in one ear out the other. She's like, "Oh, so what you're telling me is that he's
He's
excited about me?"
excited. Right, totally.
Like,
Right? It
hooray!
not to jump into coachable moments, but like, you hear what you want to hear.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Yeah. So she talks to Brayden. She's hiding this rose underneath her shawl. And then she pulls it out, and he is so excited, and she's so excited. They go back to the group, and I was like, "Oh gosh, guys, be cool here," because the rest of the cast is just looking at them like, "Okay, they obviously just made out, and he got the rose." Like, it hurts a little, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the episode, we have the rose ceremony. We have the typical in the moment interviews where you see their insecurities. They're hoping for a rose for validation. Sean talks about how this is the only time he's been out of control in his entire life. He's obviously not lived very long. Uh, she gives out all the roses. The last rose goes to Spencer, and she sends home 6 of the guys: Nick in HR, Pilot Pete, Loan
Nick
Officer Taylor,
Nick had
Nick
my
in HR.
favorite line when he's like, they're doing backflips and I'm in HR.
I know. That's gonna be his claim to fame. You know what? If I was gonna get kicked off on night one, I would hope I had a one-liner that people would repeat. I was like, Nick and HR, good for you. Oh my gosh. They sent home Chris the jumper. That is a shocker. Joe and Caleb. Any
Nice.
other thoughts on the episode before we jump into coachable moments, Lauren?
The only thing, couple things. One is, it's just remarkable how little drama there was.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because, again, if memory serves, didn't they used to have like dates on the first episode? Wasn't there a premiere, and you had like the rose ceremony and then multiple dates? Like, I didn't think it was just the rose ceremony on the first episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's been like this for a while because they stretch it out. And you see
They
it at the
stretch it
end.
out.
It's like it's morning.
Yeah.
It's morning.
Yes. I just feel like there's usually more drama. Like, this was a pretty tame episode. I mean, we still found coachable moments, but
Yeah.
because the human brain can create drama in a paper bag.
Whatever and whatever. Yeah. Well, I mean, on that note, do
But
you want to jump in the first one and take
sure.
that one?
Yeah, sure. All right, should I just get to it?
Yeah, coachable
Okay.
moment number one.
All right. Drum roll. Um, so I think this is just a general um topic that could probably apply to any season. But so a little bit about me. I didn't mention this in my opening, but I'm a little over 2 years sober. And this is my since I took a couple seasons break on watching the show, this is my first time watching the show sober.
Yeah.
And as we all know, there's a lot of drinking on the show. You can see them drinking. Although I thought it was interesting, I we didn't actually see Charity holding a drink, but we know she
Oh,
drank because she did a shot. Um, but I think it's so interesting that the show is scrubbed of any conversation around alcohol. You never hear them talk about alcohol. And like, if you think about real life, it's pervasive in our society. You can't watch a TV show. You can't read a book, listen to a book without a conversation around alcohol. Like, how much did I drink last night? Or, oh my man, I shouldn't have said that because I drank this much last night. It is not talked about on the show, from what I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is not. It is not in the conversation. It's almost as if any talk of alcohol is edited out of the show. And I think that's super important for two reasons. Like, first of all, I mean, and by the way, this isn't necessarily coachable. This is just, I think, a really important topic of conversation in terms of dating, in terms of life, in terms of the show. But I think it's important, first of all, because when you're choosing a potential partner, I think it's important to investigate your position on alcohol. Like, for example, because it's so stark for me in terms of my pre sober life and my post sober life, and I am dating. So it's like, what do your weekends look like? Do you go hiking on the weekend or do you spend your weekend at the bar? Um, do you like go to boozy brunch? Do you like what is your life centered around alcohol? Is it not? These are so it's like when you sit down with a partner and you talk about do you want kids? I think do you what is religion? What's your political views? I think your position on alcohol is super important. And we I don't know if they do talk about it and we just aren't privy to it because they edited it out, but it's like, what's the conversation around alcohol? So I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is for purposes of the show, when you're drinking, it's much harder to regulate your feelings when you're drunk. And it's harder, your inhibitions are lowered. So it's like, oh, when they had that conversation, were they two sheets to the wind or were they sober? So I just think it's interesting that for those two reasons, we have absolutely no gauge because they don't talk about alcohol on the show.
yeah. Yeah. And yet it's like this other character on the show because you constantly
Yes.
see them with a glass in hand. I mean, one thing that came to me as you were talking as well is that when they come on this show, they're stripped of all distractions. They don't have their phone to scroll on, which is a major one for all of us. They you never see anybody eating, so there must be food somewhere, but you don't see them eating. They
Yeah.
don't have anybody that they know, any sort of like TV media, any of that script. I don't even know if they have books and magazines. And so
No
the one
idea.
thing that they actually give them that could serve as some sort of buffer or some sort of way to numb the like crazy emotions I'm sure they're feeling is alcohol and it's readily available. So to your point of not
Yeah.
being able to regulate emotions, I mean that's kind of one of the only things, especially in this intro episode where oftentimes you'll see the men working out or doing like hanging out at the pool, but they don't even have that here to like release any emotions because they're just sitting around and they're not really sure what's going on or what's about to happen next.
Totally. Especially as you were mentioning these, and it's hard for us to gauge time, but these rose ceremonies apparently go all night long. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, it's hard to know how much well I mean it's hard to know how much they've been drinking and sometimes it's hard for people you don't have to be an alcoholic to have a hard time stopping at one when you're sitting with no food and only alcohol for like 14 hours,
Right.
right?
If not
And if you're
more.
not somebody who drinks a lot, that's like a lot of alcohol to manage. And then it's a high stress situation. You don't have something to balance you out like food. you're nervous, you're anxious, you don't have, I mean, maybe the producers or people that you can lean on, but you may not have like your regular people around you to,
Hmm.
to talk to. And so, you just don't have that buffer to help you regulate your emotions. So it's
Totally.
just an interesting situation.
Well, I mean, what, if anything, has helped you since you're, obviously navigating this world? And if you're dating, you don't have the liquid courage anymore, because you have decided to not drink anymore. Like, have you found any tools or any ways of thinking about this that's helped you, or anything that might help somebody listening that's like, okay, wait a minute. Now I realize that I lean on alcohol in that particular way. What do I do?
Yeah,
Now I see it.
that's a great question. So I mean, I have a lot of tools at my disposal. I have life coaching. I have a life coach myself. I have AA. And so there's like a lot of the 12-step program, and it's really feeling your feelings. I mean, that's one of the challenges of getting sober was it's like, oh, well, oh wow, like I really have to feel my feelings and
Mhm.
stepping outside my comfort zone. But dating sober has been really, really interesting. And, I do have that insecurity of like, would somebody want to date somebody who's sober? Because when I was drinking, there's no way I would date someone who's sober. And I have it right on my profile that says, at first I said, I don't drink, but I don't care if you do. And I was like, wait, that's actually not true. It's like there's a saying in AA that's like rigorous honesty. It's like be really, really honest with yourself about what it is that, well, be honest with yourself about a lot of things. Same with life coaching, right? It's like really be honest with yourself about how you think and you feel. But it's like, wait, that's actually not true. It's that I don't want somebody who centers their life around alcohol. Like, I don't care if you have a drink or two, but are you centering your life around alcohol? Are you going to spend your entire weekend like brunch has alcohol in it, then you go to another bar, or you go to, you go to the baseball game and drink, and then you go to a bar
Yeah.
afterwards. It's like center your life around alcohol. So, um, so yeah, um,
I mean, that almost goes back to the first point you were making, is that they don't
yeah,
necessarily talk about it on the show. And what I liked about what you just said there, and I think is applicable to all of us, it's whether you drink or not, is just being really honest about what you want, because it's so
yes,
tempting in those moments to almost say what other people want to hear. Like, oh,
yes.
I don't, but you can, and it's not going to bother me, when deep down you're just like, it's bothering you. And so I think it's a really brave moment to say, this is what I want. Yeah, it's going to filter out a lot of people. But if we don't talk about it, like they don't really seem to talk about it on the show, Charity might end up with somebody who's just like, yeah, every weekend is the baseball game with drinks. Every weekend is this and that. And I go out with my bros and this is what I do. Is that cool? And it might not be cool. If that's not how she wants to live her life. So I mean, I love that idea of that radical honesty and like coming from that approach.
I think that's such a good point that it's not just about alcohol. And I think there is a lot of that on the show. Is that like, because there's one person you're pursuing, and it's like, oh, you like blue? I like blue. You like pink? I like pink. And it's like, but wait, what do you want? It's like really being honest about what you want, because you do that in the real world when you date, or at least you try to do that in the real world. It's not always easy.
No,
But
it's not always easy.
yeah, but it
Yeah,
doesn't have to just be alcohol. I just think alcohol is one of the important things that they actually don't talk about in the show. And there's other topics they don't cover on the show too.
very much
Uh,
so. Well, I think on the note of like
yeah.
finding things in common, that almost brings us to coachable moment number two, which I
Yes.
think you're going to take if you want to lead that one up.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, we were just sort of, I
I
think,
know
just
we're
kind of
dancing around it.
we were okay. So, moment number two was Charity's original conversation with Braden when he was saying he liked her empathy. And he's like, because I'm over considerate. Almost basically, these aren't his exact words. I wrote them all down, but just for this time's sake, he basically said, I'm over considerate to my own detriment. Like I almost harm myself because I'm so over considerate. And I thought it was really interesting because she seemed to like eat that up. I mean, it may be editing, maybe there are other things in that conversation, but what we saw, she seemed to eat that up. And I saw that as a red flag because to me, empathy is very different than what it sounded to me like he was saying. Like over consideration to my own detriment to me read as people pleasing. And empathy is not people pleasing. And just to use facts, I Googled the definitions. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. That's according to Google definition. And people pleasing is the emotional need to please others, often at the detriment of yourself. And I see people pleasing as a red flag. I would not want to date a people pleaser. And I can say that because I am a former people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser. Um, and like I see people pleasing as a red flag. I can go into some of the reasons why I think, or I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Charity in her response almost seems like she has a general understanding of I used to overgive. I used to give and
Yeah,
give and give, and now I have to like take a step back and watch the situation. Almost sounds like she might have some boundaries.
yeah,
And when I watched it back a couple times. It did seem like she was assuming that her approach to humans is the same as Braden's. And I watched it back and I was like, you're absolutely right, Lauren. I like that is they are not on the same. They might have the same quality, but she's more mature in how she approaches it from my point of view than Braden, who is just like, oh, I'm so glad that you're an overgiver and I'm an overgiver. Now we can overgive together. And
yeah.
nobody says what they actually need or sets up any sort of boundary. And it's not, I don't think it was as compatible as Charity thought it was.
Very well said. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah.
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 Well,
Because
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, no, no.
Well, what helped you overcome people pleasing? Because honestly, a lot of people do. I have definitely noticed those tendencies in myself over the years and have used, like coaching to overcome it. But I'd be curious to like if there's anything in particular that helped you.
Yeah. Well, first I'll give you my number one example of like what I used to do and why I think it's kind of a red flag. And I can
Mhm.
just give a couple
Yes.
examples of how I overcame it. So like what I would do is I'm very prompt and I'm a planner. And but I'm a people pleaser. So if I had made plans, and I lost friendships over this, if I made plans with somebody and I'd be like, okay, let's meet for coffee at 5 o'clock. And I knew they're gonna be late. I would, but I'm also a people pleaser. So I'd be like, if you're late, it's not a big deal. Don't even worry about it. And I would sit there and stew and be mad. So I would hold a resentment. So people pleasers like tell someone what they want to hear, but then they would hold resentments. So it's like manipulative, right? So people pleasers think that they perceive themselves as nice, but it's manipulative. And you hold a resentment. So they're like, oh my God, don't even worry about it. It's fine. And then I would just like hold that resentment. So then I learned how to set a boundary. And in that example, it would be, hey, we can meet for coffee, but if you're 15 minutes late or 10 minutes late, I'm just going to leave. So then I wouldn't be mad. Right. And
Yeah.
then I'd set the expectation, set the boundary. And then first, it's under setting the awareness. It's like, I realize actually, I am on time. I am a planner, and that's okay. And I'm a people pleaser, right? It's like the awareness, the
Hmm.
understanding, and that's okay. And then like I'm just gonna own it and I'm not gonna be mad about it. And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna understand it. And then I set the boundary. And then that was the first thing. And then
And can I
also,
interrupt you
oh yeah,
quick? So
please,
the
sorry.
formula for the boundary, it sounds like, is if you do this, if that person is late, then I will do this. And it's something that you can control. Like I'll leave if you're more than 15
Yeah.
minutes late, if that. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's setting the rule, setting the consequence, and then communicating it.
Yeah.
That's the formula. But
Yeah.
the first step is really just realizing you're doing it, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and realizing that while you think you're being nice, you're not actually being nice because you're trying to control someone else's behavior, right? Like you think, I'm just trying to make someone happy, but you don't know what makes somebody happy. And you're trying to control somebody else's feelings and behavior. And then you're also like being resentful because you're like,
Yeah, it's like your dating profile where you're like, I don't drink, but you can. And now I hate you because you drink. Like,
yeah,
not cool. Not cool.
yeah. So it's really getting honest with yourself about what you really want
Yes.
and
Yes. And
asking
then
for it.
and having your own back to honor that because story comes to mind for me. It was a job I had a while back and I had already quit. I was on my last week of work. I had my whole week scheduled out to do a handoff to other people. And they asked me to do some sales calls. And in the past, I would have been like, yes, whatever you need, whatever you need. And I legit did not have the time to do it. And so, like, it was like, took every part of me. I was like, I should just say yes. I should just say yes, even though I don't want to. And I'll be overworking. And it was so funny because my coach was just like, you quit. The fact is that you already quit. What are they going to do? And I was like, they're going to hate me forever. You know, it was like such a doomsday thing when you like you don't people please. Like it feels like something terrible is going to
Yeah.
happen. And that's what makes it so hard to overcome because you have the
So,
awareness, but then you're like, no, but something terrible is really going to happen if I don't please that, like go out of my way to please that person. And so, I mean, kudos to Charity if she has figured out some tools for herself. I
yeah,
just don't think Braden is quite there yet.
totally, totally. And the last thing on people pleasing is like it's harder to trust a people pleaser's word because I
Mm,
used to like say yes to everything. I'd be like, yes, because I didn't want to disappoint somebody. I didn't want to let them down. But like when a non people pleaser says yes, don't you like believe that they really want to come because you know that they know how to say no.
mm.
You know what I
It's so
mean?
funny. I was like, nobody comes to mind. Is everyone I know a people pleaser? But no, I'm sure they're not. Just kidding.
No, everyone just wants to hang out with you.
Always. Always. Yeah.
Right? But
I
it's like
mean,
when a yes means yes, no means no. When they say yes, it's a hell yes.
it's a hell yes. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it does feel good because you're like, otherwise they would say no. I had this British boss once. I don't know why it matters that he's British, but it just sounded nice when he said it. And somebody would ask him to do something. He'd be like, I like to, but I really don't want to. Right. And it was like, oh, of course. You're like, if I said that in my Midwestern accent, oh, yeah, I'd like to, but I really don't want to, you'd be like, well, jerk, jerk. But it's true. There's so many things I would like to do, but I don't
Right.
want to. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to leave the house after 8 p.m. It's dark and I can't see very well anymore. Like,
Yeah.
legit, legit. I'm not coming to your house
Yeah.
that late. So,
Totally.
um, well, that was a
Yeah.
yes, such a good. So, Charity's got her hands full with Brayden as per the end of the
Yeah.
episode. You see previews of the future of different
Yeah.
different things will
There,
come up.
there's
Yeah.
so many things we could talk about Braden, but I just want to pick up that one little thing and then
Yes,
you'll
I
you'll
love
have
it.
lots for future episodes, I'm
I
sure.
know. All right. Well, that brings us to our last coachable moment. Coachable moment number 3. And this is another one that's a little bit more general. But I think it's actually one of the reasons that I like watching reality shows so much is that you get a group of people that are like suddenly thrust into a space that is not in their comfort zone. So, these people are going about to day-to-day life, and now they're suddenly on this show where they have no other place in their life where they can draw from. They can't be like, oh, I've been on another reality dating show in the past and I can draw from that to have the skill set to know how to show up here. Like that exists. So suddenly here they are on night 1. And I think this is why we probably all like to watch it too. You have 25 men in Charity. Charity has an inkling of what this is like because she was on a previous, like a contestant before. They're in clothes they probably don't wear all the time, which are probably mildly uncomfortable. You're mic'd up. It's cold. Like we didn't even talk about how it's freezing from what we can tell. It's pelting down rain. They're drinking probably more than usual, may or may not have food, probably super tired, and they're trying to navigate this world. They have no idea what to expect. Cameras everywhere.
Mhm.
And so of course we're gonna get like ridiculousness will ensue. And the people I know you had before said, like, oh, yeah, they can just go talk to the producers, but the producers have their own agenda. They're like, oh, yeah, go interrupt that one on one date. That's a great idea. Here, let me give you a prop. So there's like nobody you can even trust because you can see the men befriending each other. but there's really even still, I mean, they're all going after the same thing. And so the people who stay on the show talk so much about transformation and like what happens to them. And I think this is something that is even similar to, we can bring this back to coaching, is if you put yourself in a scenario where you're outside of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
you have to become, by like default, you become this different person who has to like step up to the challenge or not.
Yep.
And all of these people on the show are like suddenly, like you can see them grasping at former areas of their life. Some of them seem to think this is a job interview and they present that way, just like, okay, I'm applying for the job of your husband. Some of these men seem to think this is a sports competition and they're doing backflips trying to impress her because they're like, I've only experienced this one thing where we're all going for, where multiple people are going for one quote unquote prize. And that's maybe as a job or maybe in sports. Um, so, I mean, to me, this really stands out because I mean, I even think about this. I know at the top of the show, we talked about, starting your own business. But the same thing comes up in any scenario. If you're like having your first kid, you're moving to a brand new place you've never been before, like suddenly you are in a different environment. And yeah, you have some skills to go on, but like by default, you become this very different person. And I know for myself, this is where coaching was a game changer for me because I've done a lot of different things in my life. But once I had coaching, that's where I really could get the support of just this neutral party who could just say, okay, like it makes sense that you're in this new environment and you're feeling a ton of self doubt. You're feeling like just a roller coaster of emotions. And to have somebody there that can just be that calm, steady force to talk you through it. Something we don't see the contestants on the show have would be beneficial, but it's something that like I feel like I could very much relate to because I'm watching them be outside of their comfort zone. I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, but it's something that stood out to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they designed the show for a reason, right? Like if they were able to like call their best friend or call their therapist or
Mhm.
call their life coach or call their parents, they could probably ground themselves and get out a little bit out of their mind drama and then act in a totally different way.
Yeah.
But they probably isolate themselves from all of those grounding forces because they want to foster a sense of mind drama as much as humanly possible.
Yes.
Um, but I agree wholeheartedly that we talk a lot about there's growth and discomfort. And so I think the discomfort creates the mind drama and gets great TV. But I do think there's huge transformations for the ones who, sink or swim. For the ones who
Mhm.
swim do end up having huge transformations
Mhm. For
for
better
sure.
or for worse
For
too.
better or for worse.
For
I
better,
know.
for worse. But yeah, because I think about this too of like anybody who's in a rut. And I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to continue on with this show, start this podcast was, um, a lot of people have that pattern of, sitting on the couch or, like going to work and then coming home and sitting on the couch and watching these types of shows. But the way that you would get out of any sort of rut would be to put yourself in this environment where you're out of your comfort zone or try for something new or change your patterns in a certain way. And it can just feel like when you approach those things, like everything has gone wrong because you feel so many negative emotions. And so it's like, hold up, wait, no, let's just go back to that pattern of going to work, sitting on the couch, going to work, sitting on the couch. um, and so it was just like even watching this on Monday night and just reflecting on my own experiences of being outside of my comfort zone. I was just like, well, yeah, of course we're seeing whatever we see on TV. It's, we don't have the grounding forces. Lost my train of thought here, but yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to
No,
stop at yes.
it takes a tremendous courage to go on these shows. I mean, I give every single person on these shows unbelievable like props for going on these shows.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine what it actually is like to be on a show.
I know.
In
I'm
terms
so
of outside
fascinated.
their so fascinated. I mean, my true dream, if we're going to be honest here, is to go on. Well, honestly, I really do not believe I'm allowed on Survivor because of the diabetes. So my close second is Big Brother.
Ooh.
Like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with Big Brother and Survivor. Is to go on Big Brother, but I'm terrified. Like, there's just no way. Like,
Oh my gosh.
I
I'm going
mean,
to hold you to this. I'll be like, you
well,
must apply.
I did apply. I have applied to Big Brother twice. Um, but like, if you really want on these shows, you apply year after year after year after year. I mean, you really apply. But like, I mean, I'm saying that I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast. Like, there's just no way.
You're putting it
It's
out into the universe.
too old at this point. Um,
We'll find a place for you, Lauren, in the reality world, if not Big Brother, something else. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for, I don't know,
yep.
from this section is really like if you are somebody who has been in a rut, like putting yourself outside of your comfort zone,
Yes.
you just by definition, even just like driving a different way to work, it wakes up your brain in a very
Yes.
different way and it starts to like exposes like breathing fresh air onto it.
Yeah.
If you keep doing everything the way that you've always done them, you'll keep getting the same results in your life. If you like those results, amazing. But if you don't, like just initiate small
Yeah. You know,
changes or
you
go
know
on a
what
reality show.
you know yes. You know what Joe Dispenza says? Change your energy, change your life.
Mm, I love it.
Yeah. Literally. I feel like that's what you're saying. Or
Well,
or go on a reality TV show.
or go on a reality TV show. Well, Lauren, I think my life in some way, shape, or form has changed this podcast by knowing you over this last year. So amazing. Any last thoughts before we close up the show for today?
No, just thank you so much. It's been so fun getting to know you. It's been so fun being on this podcast. I'm so excited it's become a reality again. I've just had the
Thank
best
you.
time.
All the best time. All right, Lauren, if somebody wanted to find you on the internets, where would they go to look for you?
LaurenRapaport.com. That's one P at a time. So it's LaurenRapaport.com.
Amazing. And I'll also have Lauren's details in the show note for this episode. If you like what you heard, be sure to share this with a friend. That's how this whole show grows. And on that note, thank you, Lauren, for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk later.